Have you ever felt like you're not qualified enough to do the thing you love? Like you need to be more fluent, more confident, more ready before you're allowed to show up? I have been there, and that's what today's episode is really about. If you're new here, bonjour, I'm Rachelle. Welcome to Rachelle, mais français. On this podcast, I share my journey of learning French, exploring French culture, and navigating becoming without waiting for perfection. This is not a podcast about being fluent or having it all figured out. It's about learning slowly, living intentionally, and trusting the process. If you have followed my YouTube channel for a while, you might remember that I spent my Christmas holiday last year at Paris. That time gave me so much inspiration, so many things to reflect on, so many stories to share. And this year, I was not there. And for the moment, I let that silence make me doubt myself. This year, I didn't share as much as I used to. Not because I slowed down my French learning, not because I stopped loving French culture, but because I started questioning myself. I didn't want to talk about French culture or the French language like I was just describing something from the outside. And somewhere along the way, I made a lot of assumptions about myself. I told myself maybe people would rather listen to someone who is French or learn from a fully qualified French teacher. And because I wasn't living in France, I slowly started believing I had nothing valuable to add. I underestimated myself just because my experience didn't look official enough, and that turned into hesitation. I started asking myself questions like, do people really want to hear from someone who doesn't live in France? Someone who isn't French? Or someone who is still learning? And the more I asked myself these questions, the quieter I became. But here's what I slowly realized. Just because life looks quieter on the outside doesn't mean nothing is happening. This year really felt like a step backwards to me. I wasn't physically in France. I didn't take a French exam. There was no big milestone. Nothing like looked impressive from the outside, So I assumed I wasn't progressing. But that wasn't actually true. Without big things happening, I suddenly had space to reflect and space to talk to myself. I started asking deeper questions like, why am I learning French really? What does fluency mean to me? In 10 or 20 years, if I'm fluent in French, what kind of life do I actually want to live? Will I be living in France? Or am I trying to bring the values I love into my everyday life, wherever I am? And that's when I realized this year wasn't a step backwards. It's a pause, and also a form of progression. Progress in understanding myself and trusting myself. This was also the year I learned how I actually learn. I stopped chasing intensity, those long, exhausting study sessions, and I started choosing sustainability, like 10 minutes of listening while making breakfast, or a short French blog instead of a textbook, repeating one sentence until it felt natural. It's called micro-learning, or habit tracking. I shared this mindset in a previous episode, which is called Why I Stopped Aiming for Perfection in French. And honestly, that shift changed everything. Something unexpected happened. Even though I wasn't in France as much this year, my French actually improved more than before. I spoke more naturally. And for the first time, a French teacher and a French native speakers that I knew recently told me that they understood me well. That had never happened before. And in that moment, something clicked. A lot of people talk about manifestation or the law of attraction, whatever you call it, but not in a magical, like just wish for it way. For me, manifestation shows up in every single ordinary moment. Like choosing to speak even when my French isn't perfect, spending 10 minutes with the language instead of waiting for the perfect moment. That's when things started to change. I didn't progress because I forced myself. I progressed because I stopped waiting to be someone else. I stopped saying, I'll do this when I'm more fluent, or when I'm more qualified, when I'm more ready. And I started showing up as who I already was, a learner, a curious person, someone who genuinely loves the language. Maybe you are a French learner, worrying you are not making enough progress. Maybe you are a creator, discouraged by how few people are appreciating your works. Or maybe you're just a dreamer who loves French culture and hopes to live in France one day. What I want you to trust is this. If you really want it and you truly believe in yourself, you will eventually make it. This podcast is me sharing my journey. As someone from Hong Kong, now living in the UK, I didn't grow up with French background, apart from a few months of studying in France. Still learning, still becoming, but choosing to live in the values that drew me to French culture in the first place. I realized I don't need to live in France to live this way. I can bring the mindset, the rhythm, and the art of living into my everyday life now. So no, I don't live in France right now. I'm still learning, and I'm choosing to continue anyway. Trust the pause, trust yourself, and keep going. And actually, I'm going to publish another podcast about language learning meditation. So whenever you feel stuck or unmotivated, I truly believe that meditation audio will help. Merci d'avoir écouté. À bientôt!